you can see that they work with many influencers and brands right now that are local and
Right.
like outer. So they have grown to a point of respectability, in my opinion, where he has like actually created something out of that. But like you're saying, he didn't try to get a job working for a real like a farm or cultivator.
No.
He didn't try to get a job working for a dispo chain where he is a corporate buyer who goes out and tastes all the brands.
Right.
It's literally a real job, by the way.
Or he could even be a guy that represents brands.
How do you
that
feel
goes
about
out
this?
and sells their product for
so
them. Like, I think he'd be great at doing
there's
that.
growers who have their representatives who go out and do those things, and then you have dispos who have people who get represented too,
Right.
who are their corporate buyer. It's literally what it's called. It's called
Right.
corporate buying, and it is a $50K a year job up the street from here.
I'm sure.
I'm not even kidding.
And you'd probably get bonuses as well with stuff like that, where it's like if
Absolutely.
you get your product placed in a lot of different dispensaries in different states, like
Mhm.
because it's not like it is kind of just a Missouri thing in terms of where the suppliers come from. But I think very soon it's going to branch out and become like, all right, I have buyers all over the different states, and who's marketing me the best product and at the best price.
So there is that side of it, but there's
that's
also
what
like
I'm saying. That's where it's headed. Like right now,
well,
it's just on the state level because there is
it is, but it isn't. It is headed that way, but it's not headed in the way we think of what we're speaking. Like it's not that big. The reason why is because in a lot of states, there's a lot of laws that require you to have certain percentages of your shelved product to be of only so much brand or so many places. So to get there, it would take a lot of law passing too. Well, and that's why I say maybe it's headed there. But that might be 15 years from now.
No, I think we get decriminalization within 10 years. Even because
I mean, let's talk about that to start off the episode. Hello,
right,
welcome to the 1 to 10 podcast.
1 to 10 podcast.
Stirs is
and
back.
Today we're leading the league on legalization.
Yeah, so Joe Biden made that statement recently.
Right. So Joe Biden did. I mean, most of it was a token move in some ways. It did help a lot of people who may have.
Is it any more token
incarcerations?
It's looking a little dark in here. You continue to talk though.
It was helpful for people who've had like past incarcerations for it and who wanted to get like better job opportunities. Which, I mean, to be fair, it's archaic in this country that we hold people down because of being in prison when who knows what you could be in prison for. You know, like a lot of things that people get in trouble for are not things that should keep them from getting employment, however that may be.
Maybe if they're caught.
Right. Where was I? Oh, but anyway, but marijuana legalization, the Joe Biden thing, it's encouraging, and the only thing that makes it encouraging is finally the descheduling was on the table, and that was part of the 3 main points. It was like, all right, so we're going to release all these people who are doing this. We're going to ask all of governors to release people, which is mostly symbolic because everybody knows the Republican governors aren't going to just release all of these people. That would give Biden a win, and they won't have that. So a bunch of Texas already said no, a bunch of Republican states. Anyhow, but the third point was he was going to try to change the schedule through the Attorney General,
which I agree with.
If it went from schedule wherever, I mean, I think it's schedule 3. 1. Yeah, it's a schedule 1 drug, and if it dropped even one tier, like a lot of states are suddenly going to have trouble keeping people from just like having weed everywhere, and which is I think is fine if people want to grow weed at home. Like I'm totally fine with the way it is here.
Let me pick your brain really quick to
pay for the license, but I'm also fine if people just are able to do it on their own lonesome as long as it's as long as it's just weed, as long as they're not growing a bunch of.
So let me ask a question. So you're saying not just weed, so that actually is besieging the question very well. Then, how do you feel on like the drugs should be decriminalized, all drugs versus some drugs? Like, what do you think? Where are your stances? What's your baseline?
So I definitely don't think that our prison system, and really anyone's prison system, I mean, there's some examples I've seen where it's effective at rehabilitating people in some way, but I just think the way we do prison here in the United States, especially for drug offenders,
primarily
is just
private
ineffective.
Prisons too.
Well, I mean, private prisons primarily, but it's not just.
Or?
It's not. No, state prisons aren't any better. A lot of times they're worse. I think there was a case a while ago where one of the state prison was ran by the sheriff, and he decided the budgeting for it, and he was skimming money off of the prison budget for his own uses so they were getting fed shit food and like having to like starve essentially in prison. Because this great guy was, so that's what I'm saying is like prison. Jesus. So prison, I don't think is the solution to drug crimes and dealing. I think decriminalizing it is the only way you'll ever get rid of organized crime. Like I think Mexico probably more than anything would benefit from us decriminalizing all these drugs is because right now what happens is they have to deal with all the gang activity and the cartels because that's where they're growing it. But it's all coming here. I mean, if we're so that's why it's a weird dichotomy. Like I'm for injection sites and decriminalization, but at the same time is we don't really know what that would look like on a broad scale. Does it get rid of the organized crime aspect? Is there like I feel like it would. You know, as weed has become legal, there's been a lot less stigma, one, but then just all the stress around buying it, all of that has just become much less of a problem as well.
If I may, I would like to appeal to a different side, because while that is all very much a realistic take, and while I do respect the realistic take of like looking at how our society in mass would be affected by a change of jurisdiction on drug usage in general, right? And
just
relating to the stigmatizing. So as someone with mental health issues, who's also, I would say, struggled with, if you want to call it substance abuse disorder, like call it what you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
I like to smoke weed, obviously. I've had binge drinking episodes back when I was younger, but like now it's not even a thing. Like I just don't enjoy
I feel like
drinking's
kind of falling off. We can circle back to that later, but
you're 25. That's what happened.
No, it's not, because I drink more now than I have in the last 4 years.
But it's not as enjoyable.
No, it's not that even. We'll get back to the drinking. But
let me just say, so as someone who has gone on with especially writing the idea of the stigma part of weed, right? Or stigmas of drugs in general. I think that because there is an association of illegality placed upon an activity, it's condemning in nature of like within even own families. So like a mother or a father is like, this is illegal, right?
Yeah.
And rather than looking at it as like your child needs help, or they need to,
it's like, oh, they need to be imprisoned or taught a lesson.
I don't know what they need to do, but they need to do this. It's like, whoa, slow down. Like this person's clearly going through something and may need a lot of help. You don't know yet. Like assess the situation before you condemn. And so for me, I think that alone could be a major benefit, like that thought processes being eliminated by,
but it's also like
being part of it, right? And the thing with like injection sites too.
Yeah.
Like, you know, hearing older generations talk to me about how they're like, that is just so awful. I can't believe that. I'm like, so would you rather they shoot up in a dirty alley and fucking die?
Well, that's
like, what's wrong with you?
That's the other part. Is I'm gonna dox us a little here, but like particularly in St. Louis, one of the things that annoys me about the racism that people talk about here is they'll be like, all the tweakers downtown under the bridge, you know, shooting up heroin. It's like
where?
Well, no, I mean, and I'll be honest, I have seen there are places downtown where you can see people shooting up under the bridge. But that's our point. Is like if they're shooting up under the bridge, if we had these injection sites, maybe they would go there and they would do it in a safe place, and they wouldn't get AIDS from random used needles and all these other complications. Like that's what I'm saying is like. It's awful, yes, that people are doing these drugs and destroying their bodies for like heroin and meth and things.
I would rather
really
have a facility to keep them safe and maybe even guide them down a better path. Though.
Right, but what are how are they going to get better when their experience generally is like, I'm homeless, you know, I'm strung out on drugs, I'm mentally ill. Like I think it's something like 70 to 80% of homeless people are mentally ill or have some sort of mental illness, or even if they didn't have one to begin with, once you become homeless, that's such a horrifying experience.
I don't want to like combat.
I can
hear. I'm not doubting you.
No, I want to Google it just to be accurate. But,
exactly.
But it is very high.
That is. I mean, I'm not terribly surprised by that idea as someone also affected by mental health disorders. And you know, I'll say this: like the scariest thing for me as someone with bipolar disorder is if you uproot my living situation. So right now the leasing office called me and told me like, your lease is terminated early, you have 3 days to move out. I'd be freaking the fuck out right now. Like that's the one thing you can do to me to like fuck me up. Other than that, I'm rock solid, baby.
Okay, yeah, I was way off. I'm sorry, viewers. It was like 25%. But
it's the inverse.
But it's worse because I just said mental illness. This says 25% have major mental illness like schizophrenia, bipolar, like you said. So it is something
more severe. So first off, you did say you said 75 to 80%, and really what you meant to say was the inverse.
Right? Yeah. So I guess I took the inverse.
So 75% of homeless people don't have mental health issues, but what's to say they don't have a drug abuse issue and what the percentage is there? Right. I don't know. I will say this from my experience of listening to many podcasts or many different things about different places, right? Like about the upper Northeast, like Boston has areas, right? Philadelphia has areas. LA has areas. I highly recommend watching Soft White Underbelly on YouTube. This guy named Mark. He does camera interviews with people from all walks of life.
Oh, is he the one that goes into like the tunnels and stuff?
No,
Because I've been watching a guy that does that. He goes into the.
He doesn't go out. He invites them in into like a whole studio.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, this is a guy who like goes around and interviews
I think
them.
Mark. I think there's people who do it fine, and there are people who do it well, and there's people who do it really poorly and are exploiting homeless people.
And you're
that's why
like
I
a Mr. Beast thing.
But this is why I like. Let's not
he
say,
used to do that.
Listen, Jimmy, chill. You're good, bro. We still love you. But no, but I think Mark from Soft White Underbelly really does. He's a really like good humanitarian.
Yeah.
In a way of like he's actually helping these people, and he will give them money for their time. He's not trying to get them to not buy drugs. He's trying to help them if he can, but if they don't want the help, he's not going to like fight it. But he interviews people like Skid Row and stuff too. Like there's plenty of terrible areas in every place, right?
Yeah.
So there's good and bad everywhere. That's the thing I think a lot of people don't want to acknowledge surface level.
Right, but if those people are going to do those drugs and those things, then I as a person, they should be safe. They should have. We should get. It doesn't cost much.
This is a lukewarm take from us here on the 1 to 10 podcast that we want the homeless who have drug troubles to have safe injection sites and have an opportunity for a better life.
My take on things is,
that's like a humanitarian thing is what I'm saying.
Right,
it's very kind.
Yeah. But it's like
it's not a hot take.
As an American citizen is like you have all these things like that you hear about our military doing all the time.
Yeah.
So when somebody brings some shit up like this and they're like, "Oh my god, it's going to cost like $200 million a year." I'm like, "All right, well that's a drop in the bucket of what we spend on."
All right, we're going to take a quick side up here because I didn't tell you guys about this when I saw this like 3 months ago, but it was like a leak of it was something like today is this anniversary of this thing in the Middle East that happened in like the early 2000s, and it's like here's a Twitter thread of leaked footage. No, it wasn't Benghazi, but no, like this was saying, what is the worst thing you've ever seen on Twitter? I'll start. It was a thread of all these things that happened that American soldiers did to people in the Middle East, like civilians mostly, and it's like video and audio footage. And I was like, this is the worst thing I've literally ever witnessed, and it was on Twitter. What was your worst thing you've ever seen on Twitter?
On Twitter,
I've ever seen on Twitter.
I mean, it's probably like
at least the most prominent memory. It may not have been the worst thing, but the one you remember.
I mean, probably like some like corpse sort of stuff. Like I feel like I used to see dead bodies on Twitter a lot more. Like it was a lot less moderated.
Yeah,
than
now
it
that's
is
on
these days.
Facebook.
No. But Facebook was even worse.
Yeah, I know.
Like I saw people die all the time when I was in middle or like early high school. So imagine me as a freshman.
Yeah.
And Facebook comes out. Facebook at least goes public or whatever. So then I immediately get an account. So does all my friends.
Yeah.
The shit that was on Facebook back then, no moderation. They would just let you post whatever, and it could just get shared.
Oh yeah,
hundreds of thousands of times. Wouldn't get removed if it was just
gore
or like
a Twitch
somebody
link
dying.
and I get flagged for sexual activity.
Right, like Facebook was like Live Leak back in the day. Like you could just post whatever the.
Live Leak is still probably moderated heavier than it used to be.
I mean, yeah, probably.
Live Leak was crazy.
It is interesting. Have you noticed that? That's one thing I've noticed as somebody who's kind of grown up with the internet.
Sure.
And people have talked about this. It's not really a revelation or a hot take, but like the increased kind of oversight on everyone on the internet, like the anonymity of the internet hasn't gone away in some ways, but
less
in
prevalent.
Right, it doesn't. You don't get the same feeling when you have to assign into a username and you're signing up to an account on everything.
Yeah, I mean, okay, let's talk about that. Like the nature of what once was a user handle has become like essentially gamer tag, or you're just a real person.
Right.
Like either like your Fleeb or like your
or it's your email that you use like. For your life,
or it's like your real name. It's like Thomas Wimbledorm. And that's like your real influencer name, and like that's who you are on the internet. It's like your full actual government name,
right?
Which is crazy to me.
Yeah,
as someone who uses a relative alias on the internet, mostly because like that's what the era I grew up in was.
Right. Well, and that's why I think we talked about this a couple episodes ago. Where
that's why like my name has a 1 in it.
How it's different growing up as somebody who would be a YouTuber. You know, you're gonna have so much more visibility over your life that wasn't there.
Yeah, I think that's what kind of made me not want to do it for a long time. If I'm being honest, I was just afraid.
No, because like content is a lot of the times your just daily life, and what I realized kind of in college when I was. Just going out and I would be posting on Snapchat and like keeping up with Twitter. Like I would be making tweets all the time.
Yeah.
I would be always like, just trying to be funny, which I still make jokes, but it's like even that
this guy's got jokes.
Even just like being active on Snapchat and like Twitter for me was like a lot to come up with like unique thoughts all the time and have things to say. And like that to me is just the tip of the iceberg when you're like an influencer and like the whole way.
Yeah, I can definitely say there are times where like I intend to go live on Twitch, and I'm trying to come up with like what the post is gonna say or like whatever. And like, there's been just times where I just have like writer's block,
Right,
and
even
I'm
just
sitting
for
there,
a title,
and I'm
you're
just
like,
sitting there,
all
I'm
right.
like, what do I say? Like, what do I say here that I want people to know? Like, you know, it's easy when there's an event going on. Like when Overwatch 2 came out
Overwatch
recently,
2 release.
it was super easy because I'd be like, drops enabled, get the fuck in here if you
Yeah,
want a free
yeah.
skin, and it works. Like random people will show up every time. Some dude from Ireland showed up in my chat on release night, and he's like, "Oh, dude, you're in the game now. It's so cool. I couldn't even get in."
And
Like
you're
all that.
like,
He's like,
yeah,
I've been trying to for 6 hours, and I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. He's like, he's like, I'm going to bed. I'm over here in Ireland. I'm like, hey,
When did you get in on release night?
I got
'Cause
it on release
I went
night,
to
yeah.
bed before I
Yeah,
got
no, I
in.
had a couple friends pull that, and they just kind of didn't want to
Yeah, I gave
wait
up.
it out. I felt bad for a few of my friends who were like, "This queue's at 10,000 now, and I've been here since 40,000. I'm just gonna fuck this. I'm gone." And I'm like, dude, you didn't even make it through one queue. Like I sat through 5 or 6 on stream, dude. So my
Yeah,
release
no,
night
I
stream, let's
remember.
talk about that. 6.5 hour stream.
Yeah.
First 2 hours and 57 minutes and 9 seconds were me trying to get in the game,
Well,
and then I finally got in.
I know that because like I ate dinner or something, and
Yeah.
and then I got on like 2 hours after, like I knew you'd be off work and like I would be getting on,
Yeah, man.
and I hop on and I'm like, oh, you want to play some Overwatch, and then I kind of saw.
You saw the queue, man.
Yeah, I
saw the reset.
I had already. Well, I think had I downloaded it already? Because no, I don't think I did. So I started the
Yeah.
download. But then as I started the download, you were like, well.
I was like, good luck, my brother in Christ,
Yeah.
because it's been a rough one. Yeah, so for those unfamiliar, Overwatch was a team shooter-based game that was on every platform.
When did it release now? It's
2016.
Okay, so it's only been out for like
6.5
yeah,
years.
6.5 years.
Yep.
Which is pretty good for a game, honestly.
Yeah, it had a good life cycle. It was a 6v6 game, and then they decided to do this thing where they announced Overwatch 2 like 3 years ago, and then we heard nothing for a long time, and people were getting really mad. Like really, really mad.
I mean, I
Like,
was kind of
really
like
mad.
I had gotten excited for it when I first heard it because
Yeah.
I remember you immediately were like, "Hey guys, Overwatch 2, like
It's gonna be high.
blah blah blah,"
Yeah.
and then it just like
Yeah.
took so long for it to like we were still
Yeah.
playing Overwatch years after you.
My brother
said
in
that,
Christ,
and I
the
was just
clone
like,
of
"Oh,
Gundam
this-"
Evolution was announced, came out in a beta, and released before Overwatch 2 did.
But then also, I think didn't it at one point weren't you like, oh, now I don't think it's even going to be a second game. I think they're just going to do a big patch and make it 5v5. Like, wasn't that the thought for a while
Yeah,
in
so
the community?
let's touch that with what they actually ended up doing. So for during like a while, there was like, oh, we're going to 5v5 and we're going to one tank. So for those who don't understand what that concept is, let me quickly break that down for you. Tank, DPS, damage per second or damage, and then healers or supports. Okay? So basically, the gist of the game was that it was 2, 2, and 2 of each of those respective roles. And now it is no longer that. Now it is a role lock of one tank, which is one big beefy person who has a lot of shielding or health regeneration and a larger health pool. Sometimes this concept called armor, which does reduce damage for a pool of health. I'm not going to go into the explanation of how that works, but just know it's there. And then there is going to be 2 damage and 2 healers on every team. Okay? So that's the fundamental format of how it worked. Now, what they also did, which is what actually like makes the game a 2 and not just a 1.5. I really thought it was going to be a 1.5 at first because I played the first beta and the second beta. First beta,
It is exactly the same.
It just didn't feel different enough.
Yeah.
Like Sojourn was added, which was the new damage character. She has a rail gun, so very, very
She
fast.
seems busted right now,
She's
by the
good.
way.
She's good. She's solid. I like her.
She seems
I can land
very-
headshots, so I mean, shit. Fuck, I'm doing it. People are like, play Widow.
I
I'm like,
played
play
Widow. I
Sojourn.
played Widow today, and I got 10 headshots in a match, and I still lost.
That's rough. Want to say that, number one. Sorry for your time. Second off, just play Sojourn. Like she's.
I mean,
I feel like
almost
she's better
did-
Widow, but
and
Widow
then the next
obviously
game-
has her perks.
I the next game I locked in Widow. I died the first round, and my team won before I had even gotten back. Like we just like didn't even have to do anything the rest of the round.
So it
and then
sounds
they all-
like you're playing the game.
They all flamed me. So yeah, I am
you got
playing.
to play the game.
I have been playing a lot of the game. I
So-
got ranked as support,
Yeah,
but I still feel like it's
got some problems. Let's address.
it's just Overwatch.
So
you know,
it
like, it's
is
still
the same
just
thing.
Overwatch.
Yeah. So that's I would say like if you're interested in like Overwatch 2, what's the difference? It's still Overwatch. It's the same thing.
I wanted
didn't like it
more
before-
heroes, to be honest.
Hang on, hear me out. So what they also did add was a new tank and a new healer as well. And I will say Kiriko is a breath of life that I think the game needed. Because when they added Junker Queen, the tank, they gave her a very interesting like part of her kit, which is her ultimate, adding the anti effect.
Yeah, the anti-heal.
So
I really like.
there's a concept in the game where one hero had this prior, but now 2 people have, where they can anti someone, which makes their health bar appear purple, and it makes them not able to be healed during that time. It's very, very potent, but it was only on one character who had a grenade that could both heal her allies and then anti-enemies.
Yeah.
Very strong, but very hard to use. Junker Queen, it's a straight line shot.
It's pretty easy.
It's really easy to hit people with, and it's a great team fight tool.
Like right,
you
it basically wins you the
you
team
hit the
fight
ultimate, and then you cast your shift thereafter with your
and
team going in.
Now, the tank now is the most important part of the team.
Always was, but people just didn't realize it when there was two.
No, okay, it always was.
No, I'm kidding.
But your second tank could save a bad main tank. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like if you're
you have a shit tank, you're gonna know now.
Right, but like in ranked, when you play and you're like, oh, okay, my tank's just bad this game.
So I was playing
like,
a few ranked games,
in and you can't get near him to heal him, and you're like, all right.
I was playing a few ranked games last night with my buddy DJ, and I was surprised to see him on. Because do you know who Maximilian is? He's a canceled YouTuber who did like trolling Overwatch videos back in the day. He would talk, he'd be like, "What are you doing?" And then they'd be like, "He's like, you're trolling." Someone would like get mad at him, like because it has voice chat.
Oh,
so he basically would troll people, like he'd troll people in lower ranks. So he got banned for some bad shit. But back in the day, he made some very funny videos, and DJ ended up in one of them.
Oh, really?
Because he was one of the people who got mad at him. And he's like, "Don't you talk to me that way." And that was like a short, like 2-second clip in a video of like a 10-minute video. But I was like, "That's my boy." Anyways, so he's on last night. We're playing some games, and our team just starts running into this one team that's like having a major problem. It's a Reinhardt, right? And the problem with this guy is that like our tank kept moving in to go for their 4, and he's like, "I'm pushing in." He's like, "Why aren't you guys following me?" And we're like, "Dude, the Reinhardt's walking past you and just swinging at us.
Right,
like,
exactly.
You have to turn the fuck around."
Yeah, you have to shoot at him.
I don't know how many times in a week and a half of release I have typed "turn around" to my teammates. Please turn around. There is a Reaper. There is a Moira. There is a Tracer behind us. Please turn around.
People do not look
Brother,
behind them at
it
all.
is called W only. That is, they're pressing W and they are walking forward the whole game.
Well, and then like
what the fuck, dude?
The people who play DPS who are like just ran, bro. I had a guy who ran like Reaper Ash one game, and it was a 2-rounder, and he had 3k damage as DPS. And
so let's talk about this edition that no longer. This is what I really enjoy, because someone's like, I don't like not getting medals at the end of the game and knowing how
seeing
gold
people's damage is much better.
I agree. The scoreboard, baby. You press tab.
You make a nice play, and you look up at the scoreboard, and you're like, yeah, I'm leading.
What used to happen was when you press tab, is you used to see your kills, your time on the point, your objective time, your damage, your damage block,
which
whatever,
is still valuable.
Which is like, okay, you can know how you're doing. Now you can see every number from every player in the game, so you can see who the problem on their team is. You can see how good their tank is doing. You can see who the healer that's lacking is.
Even with all that info, how much focusing are people actually doing? 0.
Very poor focusing. But when you have people now, when you find the good stack though, and now it's easier to find a good stack. Because I have friends from when I play on
eliminating
Xbox.
One person, I statistically does make it more likely to find a better team.
That's true. But hear me out. I have friends from when I played on Xbox. Like I played from late 2016 into 2018 on console, mostly for Overwatch, where a lot of my time was spent. I just have like a list of friends. Like people are always on for me to make a 5-stack. So if I'm trying to get a 5-stack, which I always am, because fuck playing with randoms, honestly. Like randoms suck. They're not fun
most
to play
of my ranked games,
occasionally you find
nobody will even say any words. Dude. Until they feel that you've messed up, and that's something that happens in a lot of games, and it even happens in real life a lot. I've seen it happen in real sports as well, where like, I play volleyball, I'll make a mistake, and I'll be like, well, wait, 5 minutes ago you just made the same mistake, or like
it's a
I've
very
seen
human experience,
right? It's just something. It's for some reason, and it's in our nature to call people out when they make a mistake, but it's hard for us to realize that like. We do the same thing.
That's why when I play Overwatch, I'm always talking, like basically the whole time, like pushing in, doing whatever. It's like, that's my bad. I pushed too hard. I'm very aware of my own play because I want to talk myself through it and realize that if I'm making the same mistake and I found myself saying the same thing 3 times, not up here, but verbally to my teammate, and then someone goes, yo, you've done that 3 times. I'm like, fuck, I have.
Right,
and
it helps other people
yeah.
recognize when you're making a mistake. They'll be like, hey, you said you were going to go in, but we didn't have time to like react to it, or like they could. That's why, like, when I play CS, it's the same way. It's like I describe everything that I'm doing, and I think really everyone should, like, not to crowd the voice channel, but to just say, like, I want to be aware of where everyone is on the map. Like it's not as important for Overwatch, but it can be. Like you said, if you have a Pharaoh running around, or if you had somebody teleporting around on Reaper, like you do need to be aware of where everyone is at all times.
Hey everybody, Flea from the 1 to 10 podcast here. Just want to take a second to thank you for listening to the episode. We'll remind you guys to like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell for new episodes every Friday. And if you're an audio listener, make sure to download the episodes. It's the metric that matters the most, apparently. Now, back to the episode.
Anyways, so what were we saying about the Overwoo?
Oh yeah, I was just saying it's important to have like aware of where everybody's positioning is. Like when I play games like, well, particularly CS:GO, but also like Overwatch.
Yeah.
A lot of times what I'm thinking about is, all right, how many people are on my screen? How many people have I seen recently where I know the area of where they are?
Yeah.
Like either who's dead, who do I see on my screen, and who do I have a vague idea of where they are right now?
A bigger thing
to
that I think
eliminate
about
where people could be. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So absolutely, I think about that all the time in Overwatch, particularly. Something else I think about particularly with that game though, over like CS, because CS obviously you don't respawn in your round. Like you're not going to come back to life, and you're not going to have another chance.
Right,
to be
you
able to
can,
shoot. It's not a deathmatch,
and that's how I
right.
think of it. Is like I start a round of CS:GO with an equation of 5 in my head, and as people die, I tick off. And as I hear people call out like, "Oh, there's 2 at A or 2 at B," I'm like adding. I'm like, "All right, there's 2 at A."
So one already died in mid. There's 2A, and we don't know where the other 2 are. Or we heard footsteps
so
here.
So then I can think about like, okay, what are there still possible
and
plays?
then they're in tunnel every time.
And right. And then they're always going tunnel to B.
No, so something I think about in Overwatch, particularly because you do respawn so much in a round, right? If you do die, is a map depending on the map, like relative to what the objective is and what the walking distance is.
Travel time is so huge.
So my big one for me is the biggest example is King's Row, right? King's Row is a classic. It's from Overwatch 1. It's still around, and I've seen it a couple times in comp. But it has a really far walk for both defense side spawns. So like the first walk's pretty far, the second walk's even farther. Like it's bad. And that's where like playing defense, I won't pick particular heroes because I know my chances of getting caught out are so much higher.
And
if you
die once, you're like, all right, well then I just gave up. A whole tick of the point.
So I feel bad on healer when I'm doing my placement games because I'm not like, it's my least favorite role to play. If I'm being honest, I've gotten better at DPS, but my tank is like
what makes me so mad when I'm playing either healer or DPS.
Yeah, man,
is when I like, especially in comp. I've had it happen to me a couple times. Is as soon as I get on the screen, all 3 healers, DPS, everybody is just smoking me with every ability they have, and I'm just all right, like I'm like, where the fuck is my tank? I'm like, why am I the one? Like I'm not even in the front. Like there's a lot of times I'm just sitting in the back. The moment I come around the corner, the whole team is just like, oh, DPS.
So let me tell you what really hurts the most is when you're playing like a pretty solid pick. You're having a good round. Like I don't typically play Zenyatta per se. I enjoy Zenyatta because of the damage orb, and I like the potential it offers the team. But the problem is that the standard healing output on Zenyatta is pretty low. So if I'm not landing shots that night, or I'm not feeling super hot,
if you're not hitting good headshots,
it's just like, all right, I shouldn't be playing Zen right now. Even body shots. If you're hitting neck shots, you know what I'm saying? It's all good.
But that's what's kind of annoying is right now it doesn't feel like you can play. Like Zen feels super weak.
Yeah, Lucio just feels better.
Lucio feels weak, but okay because of the
who do you think are the best healers then?
I think the best healers by far right now. I think Moira's OP. I think she's
so overtuned.
I think she needs to be nerfed again.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's okay.
I'm consistently doing like 8k damage, 5k healing, which is like I'm fine with that. Like I'll let my main healer do 10k healing, and I'll just like doing 8k damage as a support is stupid.
Yeah, she has a lot of imbalanced circuit right now. But the thing is, I think also like when I'm playing, sometimes I feel like when I'm in a Moira 1v1. I'm like, man, we are barely chipping away at each other's health. So it's not like you're doing that much damage on the tick. It's probably the orb.
It's the orb and it's the alt. The alt
the
a little bit
overtuned.
But the alt, I think really all it is that they need to.
So just decrease the damage number, keep the healing number the same. You think?
Here's my insertion to make her more interesting tactically.
Okay.
Raise the cooldown just on the damage orb. And leave the cooldown on the heal orb the same. So if you use the damage orb, you can't use it doesn't affect the heal orb. But if you use heal orb, then it gives you incentive to use another one. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, I will say, like, I think the proper strategy is to only be throwing a damage orb at like the beginning of a round, and then
or
like
long range. When
well,
they're
beginning of
respawning,
reset, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, beginning of a reset. Same thing as a beginning of a round, essentially. It's where there's very few people walking at you. Your teammates have no potential damage on them yet, and in the next 6 to 7 seconds, you're going to be able to heal them through it, and then get your next heal or
the other situation I found myself in is if like situationally, if you're playing against Diva and she's like in your face,
Diva's overtuned.
I also think so. I think in terms of like tanks, Junker Queen, and honestly, I think Orisa, her ult is busted.
Okay, so I can be biased because I'm a big Orisa player and I love Orisa.
I know I like Orisa.
I loved Orisa
I haven't played
before,
her at the news.
and I love her now. Like I liked her old identity, but I also like her new identity with a whole new kit.
Yeah,
which is another major change. So let's just quick summary of everything that happened in Overwatch 2. So we never actually said that, I think, earlier.
Well, I mean, if people are watching, they're interested in
I hope.
Overwatch 2.
So major character overhauls for people who weren't working. Some characters, like Doomfist, went from being a DPS to being a tank. Other tanks were totally reworked. Other DPSs were totally reworked. Some got minor changes and adjustments to make their numbers work well with the new 5v5 system.
Yeah, I feel like if you're playing Winston right now, you're trolling. I haven't seen many Doomfists.
I see some Doomfists, but I played a little Doom, but he just doesn't feel that good.
No, he doesn't
and
have
Diva
anything
and Zarya just feel over fucking tuned.
Yeah.
Zarya's gross.
Yeah,
Zarya's like peak,
so
like, wow, this needs to
stupid.
be nerfed. Diva's like, if I'm playing into Zarya, Diva shouldn't be that good, but she's surprisingly still really good.
If she plays well, like she can just walk into your team and there's nothing you can do, and she'll just laser you all down with her stupid beam.
She's just really overtuned right now, and I think she just needs to be adjusted a little bit. I don't know if it's the shield number needs to be decreased. I don't know if it's the percentage
like her
gain.
ability. I don't like the shield.
What do you mean? You don't like it as playing into it, or you don't like? Have you ever tried playing it?
I've not played Zarya. No, I'm sure it's
welcome
fun.
to the church, my brother.
Yeah,
Christ.
I'm sure it's
so
just like,
fun.
oh, boop, save myself, save somebody else.
I've always liked Zarya because she has the beam, which works well against like. It goes well into Genji, goes well into Diva because she can't D-Matrix it.
The idea of the ability is stupid.
But then there's like okay, I hear you. The shield ability that has always been this way.
I don't care how it's always been. The idea of a shield is to block a burst of damage.
Yeah, but then she plays to your advantage, and then she makes it her own strength. It makes her gun empowered.
But it blocks all the damage, so they don't get hit anyway either.
Yeah,
so it does. There's no drawback to using a shield at all.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That's why it's stupid.
You think there should be some kind of drawback,
right? Or there should be some tactical decision making, because you're never like, oh,
I offer you my suggestion to fix
what if the shield was bigger but it was on a longer cooldown? You know what I mean? That would be my thought.
That is the current problem, I believe. So you can hold 2 charges of the shield right now, and you can either place
them
on
hold
someone.
2 charges.
Hang on, chill. It used to be 1 only, but it only used to be on you. But now you can have up to 2 charges,
and you can put it on teammates.
And you can put it on teammates, right? So you can get them faster. Now here's the thing: I don't think the refresh time in between, like if you use one for the one refresh, I don't think that's too long. It feels okay. Like I feel like there's times where I'm like, oh, this is getting a little dire.
I just don't like the ability.
But there is a cooldown window of 2 seconds in between when you can recast. And I think you should have a 3-second window in between.
I don't think 3 seconds. I think she's
I think it would make
tanky.
it better. I think it'd make it better. Off the rip. I mean, that would make it
make it a little bit better.
As tanky because she couldn't recast so soon.
It just feels like she walks up to you, your whole team shoots at her. Oh, she popped her shield. Everybody's like, "Oh, don't hit her." And then you're like,
"Don't shoot her."
So then you
that's the strat, dude.
So then you don't shoot her. So then you don't shoot her, and then she just kills whoever's in front.
Yeah.
Because she's not being shot.
Yeah, it's great.
and then she just casts shield again, walks up, kills the next 2 people.
Man.
You still can't shoot her though,
so
Alec. You can't shoot her.
Yeah, I think the large part of the problem with that though comes down to that the other tanks that contest against her are not that strong, and the best tank against her is Roadhog.
Nobody, right? Roadhog is the only other one that can kind of just like sit there and
wait for her shield to go down, or you have your team burst it, and then you hook her and just.
But with Roadhog, there's a drawback, right? Because he can't shoot.
Yeah, he can.
Not while healing.
Well, yeah, but he can move around now.
Yeah, well,
he used to be able to.
Moving is fine.
It's huge,
but being able to shoot while he's healing, I mean, that's basically what you're doing. People are shooting you, so you put a shield up.
I
will agree. Like I don't like the idea.
And maybe
of
that's part of the problem with with Diva too. Is that I mean, when you're using D-Matrix, you can't use your guns, but you can use the rockets.
The D-Matrix, I think, is OP as well now because blocking all projectiles.
Like, I don't know.
You already have a massive AoE nuke as your ultimate, but now
Yeah,
you need to
man.
block all projectiles. Like,
Yeah,
it
dude.
basically
And
makes-
I still find that the best way to use that massive AoE nuke is to blind shoot it over a wall towards someone's spawn and just hope to God it hits. And then
No,
it does.
no,
and you're
no,
like,
no, no.
three.
No, the best thing is always to like jump over some large building, chuck it, hope that and then tell your team to push at the same time so they back up into it. Because honestly, nobody's ever going to get hit by it these days.
I think the tactical, like, real best use is obviously, like, it's a swing advantage, but you can also use it to secure things. Like, let's say they're pushing on a defensive point.
Right.
And then you just drop, you walk up and you just put it on there. It's like, well, now you have to walk off or you die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. If it's like overtime or so, there's a lot of applications where, but honestly, Orissa's all has that function now too, which is pretty crazy.
Hurl's pretty good.
But yeah, so I mean, Overwatch 2, I've enjoyed it so far.
Bastion's disabled.
Yeah, that's kind of odd.
The infinite Bastion.
I bet that's not even why. I bet he's busted because I haven't seen anybody play it. But I feel like that'd be nuts.
Have you not seen what happens?
I've heard of it. I haven't watched.
I've had it happen to me. Like, it's real.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Even without that, I bet he'd be busted because
he's strong, but he's not that busted. Assault mode's like, it's good. The tank form feels good because I didn't abuse the bug. I literally saw it happen to somebody. Had it happened to me once, and I was like, I'm not fucking doing that to anybody.
Yeah,
because that's fucking wrong, and you should get banned for that. Honestly,
and they probably did. They probably went back and saw people who exploited it and get.
I reported somebody who exploited it against me. I said, "Fuck this guy." It's one thing to know about it. It's nothing to purposefully use it because it was the end of a match when we were in overtime.
All right,
and he literally used it to win. I was so mad. So for those who want to know what that means, Bastion has an ultimate that drops this big like barrage. It's supposed to drop 1, 2, 3 overhead shots that do like I think 150, 200 damage a shot or whatever it is. Pretty good amount of damage. If you hit before you clicked, or if you simultaneously hit the button to activate your ultimate and you clicked to fire the third one at the same time, it would allow you to then, and for the remaining time which you have to fire the total amount of shots, which is like a window of like 8 seconds, you could fire infinite shots. So you could fire as many as you could click, essentially. And it sucks to have happen to you. Just to put it lightly, like it really sucked.
Yeah, to watch the whole screen blow up.
Dude, it sucked that we had a push that was winning and we were going to be able to make a play, and then he fucking used a literally known cheat.
Cheating.
And it's like, I understand they fucked up and made this bad in the code, but like you're ruining people's experience by being the guy who goes, "Well, I'm going to try it to win a game." Fuck off.
Oh right, yeah.
Fuck off. If it would have been in the middle of the game, I probably wouldn't have been as mad. I've been like, "What the fuck?" But it was literally the game-winning thing.
Right. I mean, but that's the thing. If they get enjoyment out of that, so be it.
And then they got the play of the game with the fucking thing happening.
Of course, yeah, of course, because they're just nuking everybody.
It went on his YouTube for sure.
Oh,
it had to have,
yeah,
dude.
I'm sure.
It had to have. All right, let's move on to something bigger and better. Durs, I got a little segment here that we've talked about doing before with Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Oh, okay.
Whether they're good, they're bad, in your opinion, because you're a Magic the Gathering player.
Gotcha. Yeah. Do you have them on your phone?
I have one, and I'm going to put it on screen for everybody on the video, but I do have the
Okay.
one for you to review. This card is called Mystic Mine.
Okay.
And go ahead and why don't you read that out loud? And then if you have any questions about anything on the card, I can explain it to you.
Okay.
All right.
If your opponent controls more monsters than you do, your opponent cannot activate monster effects or declare an attack. If you control more monsters than your opponent does, you cannot activate monster's effect or declare an attack. Once per turn during the end phase, if both players control the same number of monsters, destroy this card. Oh, this is like Moat.
Yeah.
Like
it
Moat
is kind of like Moat,
in Magic.
Yeah. It is kind of like Moat.
I mean, it's probably pretty good because there's no cost, right? You just throw it out there.
Yeah. So the only thing I want to point out to you is in that little where it says spell card, there's a little icon next to it.
Is that water or something?
No. We'll check that icon really quick.
There's a little.
Yeah, it's a little. Okay, so it's a little cross shape, right?
Yeah.
It appears to be that little circle. So that is. It means it's a field spell. So in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh, there is. Field
so
spells.
it's like Mountain.
Yeah.
Where it changes the terrain. I
In
watched the anime.
Yes. That's season 1 stuff, but yes. So it would go where Mountain or like Yami or whatever you want to call it goes, right? So it goes on the field and stays face up. There can only be one field spell out at a time on the board for either player. I think actually it's currently
if somebody else
actually
plays...
let me rephrase. Each player has a field spell zone. So
yes.
if you put one in yours, it stays
what,
there
what
until
if
you
both
put another
players
one.
Put a Mystic Mine down.
I mean, it's the same,
just
same
the
thing
same rules
regardless.
apply
It's
for both of them?
same. I mean, yeah, absolutely. It's the same flavor text. So,
Okay.
what are your initial impressions?
I feel like it'd be pretty good. I mean, just because it's free, you know, like that's what's weird. It's hard to evaluate Yu-Gi-Oh cards coming from a Magic player's perspective.
No, there are lots of cards that have cost. There's a lot of cards that have cost.
Well, but it's mostly monster cards, right? So like that.
No,
I mean, I guess, or maybe I'm wrong, but I haven't seen spell cards that cost have a huge cost. So that's what just from.
I'll show you some in the future. So to evaluate, Mystic Mine is a very controversial card. Some people absolutely hate that card and think
Is
it's the
it
worst thing
popular?
ever
Like,
made. Some
a lot of people
people
play
love
it.
the card and play it a ton. Yes, it's quite
So
a
a
popular
lot
card.
of
It's a
decks
good
will
card.
just be
It's
like,
a good card.
okay, so
Yeah.
they're like, I'm waiting for
It's
my
not-
combo. Let me
it's
just like
not
throw a
in
Mystic Mine on the deck.
It's not even just that. It's like, let's say your opponent goes first, right? So you're going second, and they play all their shit, right? They
Right,
build this
like
whole board.
three random.
You have
dinky
three. You have
monsters or whatever.
2-3 big creatures. No, they've comboed, man. I'm talking. They've expended their hand. They've got like a face down, maybe even. They've comboed out, searched their whole first turn, right? And then you start your turn. And you go, okay, Mystic Mine.
Just all right. I could go.
Yep. And then you play one creature. Okay, Mystic Mine. And then you start your combo, right? And you can start searching, but you only have one
Right.
creature. So you always have that advantage, and they can't activate half the shit they're gonna do with you
Right,
now.
because it's just a blanket. It just has no monster
Yep.
effects.
So
right.
then really what it is it's more about decks that have like not even stall potential, but like
in
let's
his
say you
monster
don't
effects, does that
open-
encompass like passive effects too? Like is there a distinction in Yu-Gi-Oh between like passive abilities
And
and
active ones?
activate abilities?
not like innately described as such, but there's the you can activate this effect
Yeah,
when this circumstance happens, which is more like the active ones.
but that would
describing.
still be blocked
And
out
there
by
are
this.
ones, but there are other ones that are like this card cannot be affected by card effects, or this card cannot be affected by spell cards, and those are passives, like you're talking about.
Right. So would
So they
that
exist.
So would that negate the Mystic Mine thing or no? Or Mystic Mine just negates all ability to attack, so it doesn't matter.
Ooh, that's a good question.
Like, are
It's
there
very
any
dep-
creatures that
Yeah, no,
have
they're-
spell immunity, like,
Absolutely.
and also can use their
So-
activated ability
So
because they're-
most creatures in modern Yu-Gi-Oh that are boss monsters will have some form of protection, whether it is direct targeting. They can't have
right,
happen
like
to them.
I have Shroud, so we can't target it
Yes,
at all.
versus like things that are mass removal, versus things that they can't be destroyed by card effects, versus they
right.
can't be
Is
destroyed by
there an
battle.
indestructible effect in Yu-Gi-Oh? Like
There's damn
can't be
near.
destroyed by anything but very specific.
Yeah, there's
exile
ones like it
effects.
can't be targeted by or affected by card effects, and it can't be destroyed by battle. So the only way to remove it would
Okay,
be a
destroyed
non
by battle would technically be the indestructible. Yeah.
right. So there's that kind of thing. There's things with there's plenty of them, right? So there's not so many things as terms like indestructible as there is like
Right,
literal
Magic I think
the
was
words
the first to
describing
do the
it.
terms, and I think the terms is where they
There are so many cards I found in Yu-Gi-Oh where if you rewrote them using flavor text of Magic using their terminology, you could make the card easier and better to play.
Well, that's like even that. Like I mean, you can look at the attack or the description of the card Moat, which is what essentially. Well, I don't know if it's Moat or Castle Gates, or there's like an older Magic card that does a similar thing
Okay.
to this in Magic, where it says essentially neither player can attack.
Mhm.
And then there's also other variations of this that have been made where it's like, play this card. Each player sacrifices permanence until you control more permanence than your opponent. So
Yeah.
like it's like a leveling field. Oh, it's called balance. That's what
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
balance.
I've heard that card.
So you play balance and you're like, all right, if you have more lands than me, sacrifice 3 lands until you have as many lands as I do. If you have more creatures than me,
yeah.
sacrifice all your creatures.
I got
That sort of thing.
I
So
got
it's
you.
like it's the same sort of thing. Like let's say on turn 1 you played 2 creatures, you played mana, you put a bunch of artifacts into play.
Yeah.
And then next turn I was just like, all right, balance. I have no artifacts in play. I have no lands in play.
Yeah. And you just fuck 'em. You just absolutely fuck 'em.
You just lose
And that's
everything.
the crazy
So-
thing with like Yu-Gi-Oh is that like a lot of cards don't have they don't have mana costs, right?
Right. The no
So
mana
there's-
cost things makes things very powerful
It
just on
does.
face value.
And that is why
you know?
spell cards are so pungent, is because they are instants and they just go off right away. And that's what
So are all spell cards instants in Yu-Gi-Oh? Is that how or is there certain phases where you can play spell cards?
So some cards have requirements, like they can only be met with like whatever requirement that you're trying to achieve.
Right, like you
like-
must be trying to special summon a
Or
yada
like
yada
this
from
card
your-
can only be activated in reaction to an attack, and then when it does, this effect happens, right? So there's things like that do exist. It's like I said, it's just so much less intuitive because it is written
And
word
what tends
for
to be
word
the
what it
difference?
is.
Here's a real meta question for you.
Sure.
What tends to be the difference between a trap and a spell card?
Okay, so a trap card has to be set down face down first on your turn,
Okay.
and then after that your turn passes and you go to your opponent's turn. From any point thereafter, when the
The
requirement
trap
is
can only
met-
be activated on your opponent's turn,
no, it can be activated on your turn once it's been there,
but it
on
has to be set
it has
first.
let me put it this way, it has summoning sickness.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you put it face down, and then that once it passes and you go to your opponent's draw, from that moment, anytime the requirement of that
Then
said
it becomes
trap,
an instant.
yes.
Okay.
However, there are a few traps in the game that can activate it from your hand, which are very fun.
Gotcha. Okay.
There's this one called Infinite Impermanence. I'll show you the card sometime. It's crazy. Like it lets you cancel a special summon basically, which is most of Yu-Gi-Oh.
Oh, you just no.
There's also like okay, so this is a great example. So there's a trap card called Solemn Judgment, and this card was released in I think set 2 of Yu-Gi-Oh. If I'm remembering correctly, it's a very old card. It's not new. So
No, I
around
probably
the
have one
time
then.
of no, it wasn't. It was like a super rare card. It was like one of the rarest of the set, and it has a guy.
Okay,
It's like God, right? It looks like old man God with his hand up, and he has like 2 angels behind him. And people refer to this card as God Says No. And the flavor text reads, pay half of your life points to negate the summon of a monster, activation of a spell or trap.
So it's just pay half your life. Say no.
God Says No. I love that card. It's one of my favorite cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because in the old time, like,
It's interesting that Yu-Gi-Oh has life points in the thousands when really life
It's
points
just tens.
it should just be the same as
Well,
Magic.
there used to be monsters that had like 1350.
I know. I like a lot of the cards I had
So you
were
can
like
50s.
but it's like why would you want to be in the 50s?
you didn't want to, unless you had like an 8. So back in the day when like old Yu-Gi-Oh happened,
Like Elemental
like-
Soldier number 65 or whatever the flamey one was.
sure. Elemental Hero Flame Wingman is what you're referencing,
Sure.
by the way. But so like back in the old Yu-Gi-Oh, right? Like one of the strongest level 4 monsters was Lajin, the Mystical Genie of the Lamp. He had 1,800 attack points. It was one of Kaiba's monsters. Okay, in one of the tournament packs that came out 2 or 3 years in Yu-Gi-Oh, there was a card called Mechanic Lacer that came out, and it had 1,850 attack points, and then it was the strongest level 4 monster in the game. So sometimes in like old Yu-Gi-Oh, those 50 points really did matter.
Yeah.
That got you over things that you couldn't get over normally.
Right. Well, but so
But now, irrelevant.
to me, this is gonna spoil a little bit of how Yu-Gi-Oh works. But like when I played Yu-Gi-Oh, I played on the video games. So when you attacked, the defense went against, or your attack went against whatever position that monster was in. Is that still how it works?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So
1,000,000%.
So what is the point of putting your monster into defensive position?
So if you attack something into attack position, whatever the difference is in the math, they take that amount of damage.
Right.
But if they put it in defense position, you destroy it, they do not take any damage.
Okay, and you have to attack their monsters before you can attack them directly?
Correct. Unless the card
Okay.
says otherwise.
Gotcha.
There
So
are
you
cards that say this monster can attack your opponent directly, just
okay.
in their text.
So it's like unblockable.
Yeah. I guess it would. Yeah. Yeah. See, here's the thing you have to understand. Yu-Gi-Oh cards have more words than Magic cards, and you guys have terms that you all understand. It's like an actual universal language. And what we do in Yu-Gi-Oh is we just don't read. We just don't know what the cards do because we don't read them anyways.
Right. I know that's what baffles me is like when you're thinking of like, you know,
It's crazy, dude.
It's so funny to me because when I got into Magic, and I think this is what makes Magic such. About to throw some shade at some Yu-Gi-Oh hands here, but this is what makes
Respect.
Magic such a better card game, is especially to get into as a new player, is because when you first start playing Magic, if you want to be like, oh, let me go grab a couple packs and play some Magic, you know, you can go buy a starter deck. I mean, you could buy a starter Yu-Gi-Oh deck and play that, and then be fine. But like you can get a couple big packs together and make a crappy Magic deck and play a game of Magic and kind of understand the fundamentals of the game.
Yep.
And you'll learn like life total understanding and you'll be able to get the flow of the game.
Yeah.
And then when you do go and make a deck that is like a deck list, you'll be like, oh great, this is like just kind of an upgrade on what I've already been enjoying.
Oh, I understand this, but this
like
makes
it goes
sense
a
with
little
this.
bit faster,
It's
but you
more
still get to play the
intuitive,
game. With
yeah.
Yu-Gi-Oh, it's like you can either play like tabletop, you have no idea what you're doing, or the game's over in 2 or 3 turns.
Which is how most modern Yu-Gi-Oh goes, honestly.
Yeah.
And I'll be real, like that does kind of suck about it, in a way for new players because modern. So I watched a video essay on this, like when did modern Yu-Gi-Oh begin? I think personally it began around 2012, 2013. That's when I remember it getting like really fast. Like end of Synchro era into Xyz was like crazy, pretty fast at that point with a lot of the things that would happen in a turn. But like I still played and I could keep up pretty well. And then I came back a couple formats later. I was like, wow, it's got a lot faster, but it's still fun because there was like so many decks that could do these things. Like it used to be like, oh, this deck specializes in like getting 1 or 2 searches after you get a couple combos.
Right, yeah.
Motherfucker, every meta deck possible now has a search, cancel, negate, fucking shit on your mom's chest, like everything in the deck.
That's what I'm
it's
saying.
a whole toolbox.
Well, because
which is fun because you can create a lot of
because
really cool
everybody's
things.
playing Legacy in Yu-Gi-Oh. So
there's some cool legacy formats in Yu-Gi-Oh though.
In Magic, you have all these different formats. So you have standard, which gives you a fresh look. So that as the game evolves,
does Wizards
you can...
actually back the other formats though? Like
yes.
they're down. That's the
oh,
difference.
absolutely.
So let me
yeah.
explain this. Like Konami definitely allows us to have other formats in Yu-Gi-Oh, but there are like two big ones. There's Edison and then there's Goat. And Edison's like 2010, I think, is when the card list cuts off. So it's like, or maybe 2012. So it's like Xyz and Synchros, which are really easy to do, actually. They're not that hard to understand how to do. Like, Xyz is two monsters at the same level. So you take 2 3s, you stack them on top, you put the black one on top. Ta-da! It's Xyz. It's easy. Yeah. And then Synchros is, all right, you tuner plus non-tuner, and it's, I'm making a number 7. So that means I need to take like a 5 and a 2 or a 3 and a 4. You're doing math. It's really easy, right? But then you get into like pendulums or like...
Right, I know. And all that is
and
like...
links are...
now you're like... Well, and it just feels like to me that they didn't have a deep enough game, and so instead of like rethinking the way the game was played to make it more fun, they're just like, fuck it, we'll just print tons of crazy shit, and then a lot will be going on, and that's it.
You're close. We're gonna print a lot of crazy shit so we can make a lot of money.
Well, no, I mean it's always about money, obviously,
dude. No, Konami.
But that's what's goofy is like you say that. You like
Wizards is not
Wizards
like
100% right. Well, and that's just the difference in culture between an American versus a Japanese company.
Let me tell you something. I actually just watched a video on right before you came here, since we're on this topic. There's a guy called MBT on YouTube, pretty cool YouTuber, honestly, because he makes a lot of meme videos and they're pretty funny in my opinion. But basically, he was talking about what if Yu-Gi-Oh actually gave their explanations of why they're banning cards or nerfing cards on their ban list like Magic does.
Oh, really? They don't give any explanation.
They just
do it
one time in 2012
to ban Pot of Greed.
No, it was already banned before that. That card's broken, dude. That's a free +1 in any game. If you put that in a game, that card in Magic, it would be broken, right? You play. It's an instant. It has no cost.
Well, if it was free. Well, there's I mean, they did print Ancestral. Ancestral's 1 mana, draw 3 cards.
Pretty broken, right?
I mean, it's probably the best card of all time. It's a close second between that and.
So Pot of Greed, possibly the
Lotus.
best card of all.
Like Lotus and Ancestral are like drawing 3 cards. Like you play your turn 1 mana, you draw 3 cards.
Yeah, it's insane. It's an insane amount of
You're playing Reanimator, you discard your
Grizzlebrand. Is imagine you could do that, but then you don't have like a mana thing holding you back where you can't make further moves.
But that's like, so Magic so that's what it's nice about the formats is, so in Vintage in Magic, it's exactly the same way as Yu-Gi-Oh is now, is because the card quality has continued to increase throughout the years.
Yeah.
But then also, what's weird, the card quality's increased, but then their understanding of power levels increased. Yeah. So like the really old cards,
that's what Konami doesn't have.
The really old cards are still good, and they're like restricted in some ways. Like Ancestral's still allowed to be played in some formats.
Yeah.
Because it's fun to play with. It's broken, but then there's all sorts of other broken
something
things.
I've talked about doing recently. I know I've said it to you and Parm probably twice or 3 times. This thing called the Yu-Gi-Oh cube. It's a draft cube.
No, I'd love to do a draft cube,
bro. I'd be putting fucking 4 Pot of Greeds in that bitch.
That's what
I want everyone to have one in their draft. If you draft 2, fuck it, you won. You won Yu-Gi-Oh that day. You know what I mean? It's fun. I want something fun like that.
And that's what I'm saying.
And
is like when
I figured out how I can do it for cheap.
Well, I think I actually have Pot of Greed.
No. Hear me out. I'm gonna go to the local store that's right up the street from here.
No, you can just have all my cards.
No, I hear you. But I'm gonna buy a few things. I want to have some tangible cards and some sleeves to put them in, right? But then I'm gonna buy a bunch of dummy cards that I'm not gonna use. I'm just gonna print fucking.
I printed a bunch of proxies for Magic.
Print a shitload of proxies. Fuck it, we're playing homebrew Yu-Gi-Oh.
Well, and that's how I felt too, because I'm not one of those people that like wants to go. When I got into Magic, my big thing was draft, because I like the competition and I like playing other people. But to me, it's more fun to build. Like, the fun of card games is the deck building.
Absolutely.
Like, that's what's enjoyable. Like, it's not
the puzzle, dude.
Yeah, the puzzle of like,
so fun.
There's all these different cards, and they have, especially in games like Magic, I'm sure Yu-Gi-Oh's the same way. There's all these different effects, and there's all these complex ways the game could play out, especially when it's randomly drafted cards.
My favorite thing to do.
So it just makes it more interesting for me.
Is build like a beautiful deck and then just sit there for hours and test it. And just overanalyze.
You shuffle.
I'm like, what 3 cards are bricking? I'm like, what cards are bricking me? I'm like,
I used to do
what
that.
What gives me draw power? Like, what fixes this issue?
I want to get back, and I'm gonna. I think I may actually swing by my parents' house on the way after this, and get because I want to get my Magic cards and all my Yu-Gi-Oh cards, because I have like a whole bunch of like nice Magic decks.
Get that nerd shit.
Yeah, and I just like playing, and also just seeing people shuffle cards with sleeves just makes me want to.
Dude, I watch some Yu-Gi-Oh YouTube shorts sometimes, and it's like the Mystic Mind joke I made was literally from one of those. He's like, all right, I'm gonna do this, and he's like, any contestant? He's like, no contest. He's like, okay, I'm gonna do that. He makes a whole turn. And he's like, all right, man, my board's looking good. I got everything. Okay. He goes, Mystic Mine. Mystic Mine. Dude. God, yeah. Card games are great, man. I need to introduce you guys to Keyforge still too.
Well, and
Sir Richard Garfield's second card game.
Well, and I think we need to get into. I wanted to just start like every couple of months, just buying another random board game, and just playing random board games.
Board game
like
nerds, man.
Because
like
I really enjoy like those sorts of games. Like I think it's fun for like everybody to get together, and even if it's just like one of the cooperative ones where you're playing with
something fun about a board game is like if you get a new one, is that no one's ever played it and you're all learning together. There's like no one who's like the superior player.
Exactly. That's what I always hate about one of my gripes with video games recently has been like it's so competitive that it really pits your friends against each other a lot of the time.
I came in the lobby the other night for Overwatch for the 5-stack, and then I immediately started shit because someone wanted to single rock a roll, and we all gave him shit, and then I started going in about how there are literally better players in the same lobby as him that are better at that role and how you should respect that. And then you came in and were like, dude, you're being a little too
right.
Well, and I was like, at first I was mad, but then I thought about it, I was like, I had no chill.
Like, but like that's again, that's the whole nature of gaming now is like we're supposed to be competitive, and I love being competitive in games, and I like competing even outside of games. But it's like when I originally drew me to games was that like what you just said, like that everybody figuring it out together and kind of like learning what to do. And I feel like a lot of that has come out because there's not a lot of co-op games. There's not a lot of cooperative games.
Yeah, I mean, we had the It Takes Two.
Right, It Takes Two was good.
Yeah.
I mean, even Fall Guys is kind of the same sort of thing where you get to,
Crab Game.
Yeah, Crab Game.
Crab Game was fun because it was like or games like that in general where you're doing these platformer battle royales. They're just fun because like if you don't do well yourself, you cheer on your homies and you just have a good time.
Right, and it's not super stressful. Like you don't have to win. You know,
except for that round in a Crab Game where like the lights go off in the room and people try to kill you and shit.
Right,
that round is stressful every time.
You got to hide on the top of the bunks and you better get a knife,
dude. if the three of us would have ever actually grouped up and hit on
we
top
could
of
never
bunk,
find each other.
Yeah, and I always get murdered. It was spooky dooky. You know what was a great game mode though? Was the bomb round where everyone's in the room and they're doing like the Mario Party mini game. Where it's just
that brings me back because I mentioned Fall Guys. Did you ever watch the Fall Guys tournament that a bunch of Twitch streamers did, and Toast was on a team with Shifter and somebody else.
Lay, he's back.
And it was literally
Shifter,
the most hyped Twitch streamer tournament. I feel like like Toast is one of the best people to watch in those because he always gets so into it.
Did you see the video of Toast getting knocked out by Michael and they were boxing?
No.
Yeah, you can look it up on LSF.
I have to look that up.
All right, well, we got to wrap up here pretty soon. A couple quick things. North American World NA 0-9 in group
right,
stages.
Yeah, as was foretold. If you go back a couple episodes, you'll see me predicting that.
But Rogue from Europe 3-0 right now.
I mean that's
hype.
That's nice. Good for them.
That's hype, dude. All right. Anything else you want to say, man? Before we get
Hot
out here?
D. Holy shit.
Yeah.
We gotta cover that.
Yeah, let's talk about it real quick.
When my mans opened the door and said, and then they were like, they did the whole king announcement thing. I about nutted.
Yeah. Yeah, Hot D has been continuously just been like
the realm.
increasing, right? And now just a quick
detour. Music comes in.
Let's take a quick detour because I do love Hot D and I want to give all the respect it deserves. I watched the episode last night before bed. Like Sam already had watched it on Monday, and I watched it last night so I could make sure I was caught up. And she stayed up again to watch it because it was just a hype fucking episode.
Yeah,
right?
I rewatched
the Eamon is my favorite character. I'm just gonna put that out there. Like I love him already.
Which one is Eamon? The guy with the eye patch? Yes.
Patch, man.
He just wants to be Damon so bad.
No, he wants to kick the shit out of. He used to want to be Damon, but I think he wants to kick the shit out of Damon.
I mean, I think he's like that. He's
the edgy boy of the.
He's edgy, and he sees like him.
He's the edgy boy of the Greens.
He sees him as the cool
boy of the Blacks.
Well, no, he sees him as cooler than him, so he's like, I want to emulate my uncle, or I guess I don't really know what he is to him, uncle, cousin, brother.
It would be his uncle because Damon is Viserys' brother.
Yes,
so it would be his uncle. No, the big thing I want to say really quick. So Rings of Power, you weren't here last week, right?
Yeah.
So I want to cover this really quick. So Rings of Power episode 6 was really fucking hype, and then episode 7 happened, and it was really fucking boring again.
Oh, really?
And I was dude, literally the Mountain Doom erupts at the end of episode 6. It's amazing. It was like this
Yeah.
it was a battle episode. It had like a bunch of action, and I was like, wow, they're bringing all the storylines together. This is really hype. And then the episode ends, and then episode 7 starts, and I was like, wow, nothing just happened for 45 minutes.
This may be unfair, but all I can think about when I think about Rings of Power is the scenes in Lord of the Rings movies when they're in Rivendell.
Let me tell you,
all it is them just like prancing about Rivendell, just doing nothing.
Yeah, let me tell you, man. So I've been rewatching the extended editions to like actually get my Tolkien fix. Oh my god, dude! Like I can watch the extended editions on repeat. They're so good. They're so good. Even though they are technically blasphemy according to the Tolkien estate. So with that, I'm reserving my expectations for episode 8, which is the season finale on Friday. But I will say, I think I figured out the problem with this show.
There's no soul.
There is soul to it. There definitely is. But the problem with the show is that it's a planned 5-season show. So everyone's just like, this is fucking slow and boring, and it's not going to get exciting.
It just feels like they're going through the motions.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I think they're not going to get to anywhere of not going through the motions for like 2 more seasons, and then in season 4, it's going to get fucking crazy, probably.
I don't know.
If things are supposed to lead where they go,
it's going to need a monumental shift because I'm so soured by how bad
a reveal of the Dark Lord to be a shift.
I'm so soured by how bad of a job they did with the Wheel of Time series that until they come out with like 3 or 4 banger episodes in a row,
you really are scarred by Wheel of Time.
No,
man. I know.
This is one of the most legendary fantasy series of all time. Just absolutely gutted, and they're still going to make a season 2, and it's going to be miserably bad because they already killed off characters that are supposed to be alive at the very end.
Yeah, that's
they killed off one of the guys who's a general at the last battle.
All right, well, with that, we're gonna wrap the 110 podcast.
Fuck you, Amazon.
Yeah, fuck you, Amazon. Fuck you, Jeff Bezos.
Jeff Bezos, I hope your dick rocket crashes to Earth.
Jesus, okay, I don't know about that, man, but all right, see you guys. Bye.